All right, good afternoon, guys. My name is Koroush Saraf. I'm the VP of Product Management here at Fortinet. So just a little bit of history from Fortinet and where the wireless came from. I joined Fortinet in 2009, so it's been about 9 years now. Prior to that, I was the co-founder of a company called Concentric Networks. We were doing secure switching using network processors and deep packet inspections and user and identity-based policies, which later became next-generation firewalls. And in 2009, as part of acquisition conversations, I got introduced with Fortinet. And there was a desire to also do secure access in Fortinet. So I was doing switches, but in 2009, we all remember 802.11n. After the iPhone came, a wireless all of a sudden became from a nice-to-have to a must-have. People were bringing in even their own access points and plugging them into the Ethernet jacks. I remember we had a customer who was a healthcare clinic, and there were these Netgear access points that were just popping up, and doctors bringing iPads in, looking at X-rays, and it created a kind of a mess for IT, who all of a sudden had to deal with something new that came into the network. We also, as I was looking at the feature requests that were coming in as well, there were quite a few requests from customers that had Aruba and Cisco wireless controllers that wanted to hairpin the traffic through a FortiGate and essentially keep the wireless from going onto the LAN, especially with the lack of security that wireless basically was synonymous with. So that's essentially kind of how Fortinet ended up going and taking this set of capabilities of firewalling, application control, antivirus, and URL filtering, and all the different capabilities. It was deployed at data centers at the core, but we saw this internal segmentation use case that kept coming up. And so it was very difficult to, for instance, align MAC addresses of a wireless to the IP address that the FortiGate needed, where the DHCP was handed off by a third person on some fourth VLAN, right? And so that orchestration was where the difficulty was, and was the opportunity for Fortinet. And I think to your point, we saw networks that had multiple boxes for various point products, and especially when you do this in HA, you double all these boxes, right? So the total cost of ownership goes up. The multitude of different GUIs that you need to get trained on and manage, and the IT staff that you would need goes up. So the Fortinet philosophy from the very, very beginning is to not have too many boxes, and ultimately, if a customer can buy a single box to operate their network and get connectivity as well as security, that was the goal of Fortinet. And so usually, when you see things that are not in a FortiGate, is because it's physically not possible to have it in a FortiGate, like an AP needs to be in the middle of the ceiling. We do have a Forti Wi-Fi product, which is a FortiGate with 2 rabbit ears on it for small offices, even a retail branch. We do have that combined box. But at the same time, there are also things that we need to add because of the laws of physics. We can't really just stick everything in the same box. So the goal and what's achieved is a lower CapEx, OpEx, training, all of these soft things that people worry about. At the end of the day, all of these are checks that people have to write. That's what Fortinet is trying to optimize here and make life easy. So the 3 words that I use and I measure everything by from a product perspective is that everything needs to be simple. We need to have the security. And then I use this word sensibility. And sensibility means that just, you're not supposed to have a difficult life. The check that you write needs to be small. You need to have, non-complex configuration.
Can you say that one more time?
Small checks. Small checks.
There's lots of them, right?
Lots of small checks. Over time, in an annuity basis. So that's really, if you look at the Fortinet value proposition, that is, you can really measure it by that. So FortiGate as the center of our fabric, when it does the wireless and switching access, we bring the traffic, we authenticate it, we do routing, DHCP, all of those network functions that you would need are also done in the FortiGate if you want it to be. we also have this term that we use where we say no VLANs. So you don't have to worry about painting VLANs, worrying about what's on VLAN 10, what's on VLAN 20. You basically set up groups, set up the policies on groups, and as long as you have a FortiGate managed network, it paints all of those groups in the switches as well. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So authentication, device identification, role derivation. Then it does its deep packet inspection, looks at threats, and we talk about the depth of threat detection that we have. All of that can feed into the policy decision engine and for enforcement. And that's not just allow, deny, but we could rate limit, we could change QoS and toss bits. We could take other actions that hopefully I can get to click through and show you. And at the end, we get an audit trail that can be sent to generic syslog servers, to our FortiSIM product, or other types of deep inspection engines. And FortiAnalyzer is one that we also provide, which has canned reports that people get to use. Now, having come to Fortinet in 2009, there was a 10-year history of FortiGates, all the security engine, deep packet inspection that I was lucky enough to be able to leverage across entry-level boxes that basically have one WAN port, 4 LAN ports, and manage 2 APs because of the CPU power, all the way to chassis-based products and also VM-based products. So I had this luxury of just tapping into all of these things, not worrying about going to third party for deep packet inspection, not worrying about how many controllers do I get to build, right? All of this was available to me. I just had to put in the effort to make the wireless controller. And then I would say the other advantage and luxury I had is that I was starting in 2009, 2010. The first product came to market in 2010. And that was basically when a lot of the immaturity of Wi-Fi was behind us. So 11N is a pretty mature Wi-Fi, these supplicants and clients and all the issues that people struggled with, roaming issues. I basically built Wi-Fi in the iPhone generation. So it actually made me not have a lot of the bugs that a lot of people have, right? So I'm grateful for that as well. All right, so I am going to do a demo, and I have a few screenshots. We actually make all of our products accessible over the internet. So if you go to fortidemo.com, and most of the products you can log in with demo. And so I do have a FortiAP demo that's accessible, FortiGates. The multitude of products that we have are accessible online through a live demo, and you can click through the same experience that I'm going to be talking about here. So I'll quickly go through the story here. I'm going to go do a live walkthrough of the GUI and as part of the demo. But I think a few things that I wanted to show here while I have the slides up is that you see the FortiGate GUI gives you a few views of visibility into your network. It gives you the ability to configure and manage your interfaces. Then the policies and objects being users and devices are in the same GUI in this section. And then you have the wireless and switch controller as part of the same management system where you can see your APs, you can configure SSIDs, et cetera. So if we look at the switch, you have the switch management view. So this is a FortiGate that has switches that are managed through FortiLink as part of the same user interface. And you see these different colors. So if you actually color your interfaces, you don't have to worry about which VLAN is where. You basically say, here are the blue ones, here are the red ones. All the blue ones get this policy, all the red ones get this other policy. The software just keeps, proliferates that, and you essentially have what you could also call software-defined networking. Just software does it. You don't have to worry about what's there. That also makes the experience of management straightforward without really needing to know what CLI commands you need to type. Once you've configured it, you can look at the topology in a logical fashion. So you get a FortiGate, and FortiGates can cascade. So you have a series of FortiGates with wireless under them. The physical topology is easier to talk through here. So these are the switches. You have an AP. So if an AP is down, it will tell you what are the upstream devices, what switch is connected to it. So if you have an all Fortinet network, all of this map completes automatically, and everything basically pops up, and you get alerts. The other thing that we talk about quite a bit is FortiView. So FortiView is where the logs and security events get put into a database, and then it tries to correlate and organize it under various starting points, like sources, websites, threats that are on the network. Wi-Fi clients is one of them. So you can see the devices that are wireless connected, and it tries to show as much information as to where the device is, where is the source and user, amount of traffic, and this gives you drill down capabilities. So we can click on a particular user and get more information and double click and then go inside, or we can search by these different attributes. So show me devices of this type, show me these types of access points. And once you narrow the search down, then you can, because it's a deep packet inspection firewall. So it will show you all the destinations that people are going to, applications, policy violations, and also gives you a histogram. If you have a FortiGate, so FortiGates come in, the entry-level ones without a hard drive. We have FortiGates with hard drives. If a FortiGate doesn't have a hard drive, it can be married with a FortiAnalyzer, which keeps logs on a larger disk, but it can also be pulled into a FortiGate. So we've married these different products quite well, where no matter which pieces you pick up, there is a way for you to get a filled out database of logs and alerts. Any questions so far?
I do have a question. So when you run it, the controller and the firewall functionality the same, what's your recommendation in sizing? Because I've found the bottleneck tends to be the memory utilization once you start turning everything on.
On the FortiGates?
Yeah, on the FortiGates.
Sure.
So
yeah, so it depends on the type of customer that is deploying. So there is in many cases we have a distributed enterprise, distributed retail. Let's say that the WAN link is of a certain size, and so we can actually size the amount of traffic that goes through it. If you have a WAN link that's 50 megabits, FortiGate 2 digits. So we have 2-digit FortiGates, 3 digits, and 4 digits. Usually the 2-digit ones are the desktop platforms that are suitable for distributed retail, distributed real estate offices. The 3-digit ones are mid-enterprise type, and the 4-digit ones are data center scale. So just being kind of in the right band puts you in is an easy way. And then there's a matrix. We have a Fortinet product sizing guide, which says how many sessions, how much bandwidth, and how many APs. So what we've tried to do is limit the number of APs that you can place on a desktop FortiGate. So it goes we have an entry level is 2, 5, and 16. So you cannot put more than 16 APs on a FortiGate, right? And that kind of forces people to kind of move to the next level. So if you're doing a school, college campus with 100 APs, 120 APs, tends to be what I've seen. A FortiGate 300E to a 600 is generally what people end up buying, right? So it's once you get familiar with the product sizing guides, the 60 is pretty popular box, one of our most popular desktop, 300, 600, and then the 1500 is our 4-digit, more of a campus type deployments.
So if they max out the number of APs in the box, they can still turn on all the UTM features, the deep packet inspection, and still be within the resources that they need.
Yeah, because, and in fact, let me answer one question or one additional point that I wasn't planning to talk about. So our APs can operate in both bridge mode and tunnel mode, right? And so tunnel mode sends everything to the FortiGate. In bridge mode, it becomes just as if it was a wired client, and it would have the same behavior as you had before, right? The fact that you have a wireless AP doesn't mean that your traffic all of a sudden increased. It just means that it shifted, let's say, from wired to wireless, right? So you would size it the same way. Now, the question that you just reminded me of answering is that many of our FortiGates have a network processor inside. For instance, we have an MP6 product, and that does wireless offload and cap-wrap offload. So all of the traffic that an AP puts in a tunnel gets offloaded in an ASIC, and it doesn't stress the FortiGate. So if you have purchased a FortiGate, or if you plan to purchase a FortiGate, purchasing one with an NP inside, like an MP6, would be the right thing to do, right? That way you don't have to worry about any stress on the actual CPU. That's fantastic. Thank you for asking that. All right, so we talked about the wireless information as far as FortiView, and these are just a few screenshots of showing the capabilities that are available. Again, being a firewall and having the packet inspection capabilities. But it also has the same capabilities for that you would expect from a wireless controller. So there's a health monitor, and we try to make this simple. For instance, AP status. Any APs that rebooted within the last 24 hours, that's probably something that shouldn't have happened. So we try to distill everything into actionable things, and not make it look like an aircraft cockpit type of a situation. So channel utilization. Hey, these are the ones that you should probably take a look at today. It's like your today's worksheet, right? Hey, there's 5 APs. Maybe you want to check them out. We're not going to tell you all 2,000 of them that you may have. So that's the philosophy behind here. But the information is available. In fact, maybe I have it. Yeah. So if you really wanted to go through the actual events, we've also enabled the capability to turn on verbose logging, so you can see the complete 4-way handshake of every client. And you can go up there and say, add a filter, show me everything that happened with this particular client, and it will list them all, right? And you can put it into a logging system. And so, for instance, this one, if there was a failure in step 2, it says, probably the wrong password was entered, invalid MIC, message 204. So these are all available as part of the platform.
How long are you guys keeping the logs for?
If you have a Fortinet analyzer connected, it can keep it for as long as you have disk, right?
Wow,
So
that's
7 years,
fantastic.
as long as you want. So the other thing is that all of this is included as part of the base license. You just buy the hardware. It doesn't cost you anything more, right? There's none of this extra fees and things that you need to pay. And all of this has been, one of the things is that we've had much of these capabilities since 2010 when our APs shipped. We've been building, so it's about 8 years now. We purchased Maru 3 years ago, so that also allowed us to get into the additional markets in the campus. But Fortinet has been in the wireless business, especially if you take the FortiGate with the rabbit ears on it, over 10 years that those products have been shipping. So these are all nothing new. They've been around for a long time.
Is there a way to export that out of there? So if you
Yeah.
need to save it somewhere else?
This is syslog. So
Okay.
you can point it to your normal syslog server.
Okay.
FortiAnalyzer marries with FortiGate seamlessly. You just point it, and it also generates reports seamlessly. But if you want to put it into anything else that receives syslog, these are all syslog messages.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So if all of this it kind of leads up to this point that I want to make, where when you configure the wireless, it actually shows up as a virtual interface in the firewall. So over here, when I do a policy, it says it's coming from the wireless guest, going out to the network, and I can turn on the various types of features. And I'm going to show this in more detail. But that's how we take wireless and marry it with the intelligence of the FortiGate, is that the SSID just appears as a virtual interface. You configure it as if it was a physical interface, and it's very straightforward for IT staff to just learn wireless as if it was a physical port in this case. All right. So this piece, I wanted to talk a little bit about the demo that we are going to be. I'm going to take you through. The goal of our wireless is to, as I mentioned, it needs to be simple and secure and sensible, and meaning that you should be able to manage your wireless, but also protect the wireless network in a very painless fashion. So wireless, we have a variety of different devices coming in. Some that may be BYOD, some might be the IoT, some that you may not know what it is. And as devices enter the network, our expectation is that the network needs to figure out what's happening. It needs to be able to assess its overall posture. It needs to monitor the events. And it needs to also take action. We can't afford for a person to look at a log and say, something bad is happening. Let me go figure out what it is. If it knows what to do, it should do it. Kind of reminds me of that TV commercial where the bank is being robbed, and the guy says, the bank is being robbed, but Then it says, oh, why don't you do something about it? And they say, oh, I'm just a security monitor. I'm not a security guard. Right? So we are building a security guard here, not a security monitor, which you see a lot of people hear all these logs. You figure out what to do with it. So in terms of figuring out what's suspicious, the Fortinet as a company has been in this space, obviously, since 2000. We try to identify, using a variety of ways, what's suspicious, what's beyond the baseline, and what is an indication of compromise, essentially. So you see this word IOC that we use all the time. And the way that we do that is, we've had 200 engineers, 200 plus engineers now, over 10 years of experience in threat research, in baselining products, in figuring out vulnerabilities. We actually contribute a lot of vulnerabilities back, feedback into the consortium under embargo that later gets patched and then gets released. So our group is part of that team. And so there is continuous updates that's happening on a variety of security events, but we've actually added this, or we are starting to talk about this AI capability that has been part of the foundation that has been helping the engineers for a long while. In fact, it's been about 6 years that our engineers have been leveraging machine learning to detect anomalies prior to machine learning and AI being even a word that people talked about. So I was listening to their presentation. It's taken them 4.5 years to come up with the model, and it has been about 1.5 years that it's been in service. So the 4.5 years of figuring out what's the right model that can self-learn, and then it will know it has learned the correct thing. Because with machine learning, the hardest thing is to know that you learned the correct thing and not a wrong thing. It's like basically just like a baby where the parents are there to say, oh, don't do that. Oh, this is good. That's essentially called supervised learning. And then you have unsupervised learning, where there's nobody to tell you what to do. It's like a baby with no parents. And then the baby touches, it says, oh, that's hot. I should not do that again, right? So we have built both supervised as well as unsupervised learning engine. It's taken them a long time to do it. I was quite impressed, actually, that we have this. And we've been just talking about it since April timeframe. So this allows, this word up here, self-evolving detection system, is quite, it's the name that we have for this multi-layer machine learning algorithm that watches the various indications of compromise. So it collects the information, it does the analysis, it feeds it into the AI engine. It then tries to figure out if that's an indication of compromise, and then it will learn it and say, okay, if I see this again, I'm going to raise my arm and say there's something going on here, and I'm going to tell people about it, right? And so we've taken that as a trigger, and so the indication of compromise is a combination of FortiGuard and FortiAnalyzer that feeds in as a trigger, and there's automation workflow with the FortiGate to take an action. So we'll see in the demo something bad happens. The FortiGate is informed. The FortiGate, IT admin can say, if you see these bad things, these are the things that you will do. And so that's the automated way that everything happens automatically, in our system.
Can you back up a slide?
Absolutely.
I must have missed one of the acronyms. CPRL. Scans against CPRL signatures?
The CPRL signatures, content and pattern learning language. I think it's content and pattern database that it tries to keep updated.
Is that something you access from a third-party service, or something you own yourself internally?
It's part of the FortiGuard intelligence. Yeah, all of this is part of the FortiGuard intelligence that. I would say people actually really buy Fortinet products because of the FortiGuard system. That's really what people are paying for. And the annuity that Fortinet gets on FortiGuard, on all the FortiGates, is really what the value of Fortinet is as a company. Good. All right, so with this automation workflow, we've basically had this issue of there could be bad things happening on the network, and the security fabric will automatically respond to the attack.